So welcome everyone, starting from saying the names.
Sebastian.
Julia.
Gerard.
Tony. Simon.
David.
Jacinta.
Suzanne.
George.
Ross. Mukti.
Darren.
Very nice to meet you, and there is Bob here.
Good to see you all. Good to be able to come through to it so I could see you all.
Yes, yay.
Well, what do you think you're going to get here?
Nothing.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure that that's all.
And where do you have to go to get that? Well, there it is. Nothing, nowhere. But there is a seeming something about it all. There's a mystery, a grasping of life, which is all that there is life. And there's no one who lives a life. Out of life, more life comes. But as they say, as we point out here, it's non-dual, not two. It's only the one essence. So that's what needs to be seen and understood and grasped. There never ever was or never ever will be anything other than that. Not two, the one. Not even one. Because one implies there could be other than one. And we say we could take on this belief we are separate individuals, persons. And we think we've got to search to find it, to become something. When you look at that, it's a bit stupid trying to become something that you already are. When basically all that needs to happen is a recognition, recognising what is always there. And it's been divided up into many different ways.
Take it yourself.
Open it up.
Thank you, Doc.
It is all seemingly so. Appearing to be so. It's the one essence, patterning, shaping, forming, appearing, expressing as all these different patterns, shapes and forms which we call things. So if there's nothing separate from it, what's anyone or who is anyone trying to seek it or find it? Put ourselves behind the 8 ball, scratch behind the scratch line, because then we've got to try and find out what we think we are and become something other. And that's why it's seemingly so hard and difficult. But just a bit of recognising of what you truly are. And there are different ways of expressing it and putting it. It's just a matter of recognising. The Buddha called it a cognising emptiness. It's all empty. Everything appears in this basic space. The very space that we're sitting in right now. And look at all the things that are appearing in it in this room. Apart from out of the seeming confines of this room into the so-called manifestation. But there's nothing that has any self-nature to it whatsoever. And it can seemingly pattern, shape and form and vibrate into different things, but it was never anything other than the one. Now if we grasp that and recognise that, who or what is there to be fearful? And who or what is there to be fearful about? If it's just that one naturally, spontaneously, effortlessly functioning, and you see when they say in some of the traditions, they call it the unborn mind, or the great perfection, or the absolute. Make the statement that everything is perfectly resolved in the unborn mind. When you look at it, all the seeming diversity, all the sadness, sorrow, unhappiness, pain, it's only the description we put on from the point of view that there is somebody who can see it as such. We are this person, we are this entity. But look out there in nature itself. Does nature know anything about day, night, winter, summer, high, low, past, future, or good or bad or pleasant or painful? Nothing whatsoever. And we've got the idea we need to search for it to become it. But realise that the search itself is the problem, because we've taken on the belief we're separate and we're trying to become something. And instead of realising what you are already that, only and ever, and will be or can be, nothing other than that. And it's always been so. And so it all takes place in the so-called idea of time. And it's not, we think it's not happening now, we're not realising the now, but we will become something at some future time. Then who or what is going to become something? This believed in entity, this person, think it needs to do something to realise or recognise what it is and become one with it. And this sets up all the problems. Trying to become something that you already are. And with that concept or idea that I've got to become something, you'll never ever get it. So we have to relax and look into it and investigate and see what they're pointing out. That it's no thing, and as it's arising, it's resonating and revealing itself. It's working itself out. And that's the fact here. It's working itself out naturally and effortlessly. comes about in the recognition and realisation, well, there is nothing to get. It is absolute. It is total. And people down through the ages have grasped and understood it. Now, Nisargadatta was recognised as having an understanding, and he realised he wasn't anything separate from it, and there was nothing to understand. He was already that. And people that went to him could recognise it also. And Walensky pointed that out years later when he went back to India to visit Nisargadatta's place where he was older. And he thought he'd look up some of his old devotees, see how they were going. And he interviewed quite a few. There's a DVD on it, I think somewhere on the phone.
And there is a film on YouTube as well.
On YouTube. Talking to these people, they were serene, peaceful, going pretty well. They'd ask each of them, what did you do? And they'd all say nothing. They said, just we took on board what we heard and left it as it is, and it works itself out naturally and effortlessly, which it does. And that's what's been happening here over the years too, so I've been back too. The less involvement with the patterns and carry-ons in the world, the easier it is to resonate and recognise your true nature. Instead of the struggle of trying to become someone, or arguing with this one or that one, this one's got it and that one hasn't, this one sees the different light. When it's resonated with and recognised, you'll know. You can't help but know. And the natural relaxation, the beingness of it all, comes about of its own and continues on its own. But we need to look in and investigate in the first place. Not that we need to, but it can be very painful living from that point of view of a separate entity, a person, only because of the concepts and ideas and image we have about it, and take those concepts, ideas and images to be real. So to recognise the natural, true nature of everything that's happening spontaneously, the breathing, the heart beating, the hair and fingernails going, the food being digested, the natural, effortless living that's happening in each and every seeming pattern right now. And the natural joyousness that's in that sense of being well, nothing wrong anymore. And which is recognised when the recognition is there's nothing or no one to relate to. Relationship or relativity is dualism. And we've got this manifestation that we're functioning in right now that's appearing right before our very eyes as seeming dualistic. Now, could it be any other way? If it was as it is in its absolute, who or what could say anything about it whatsoever? Nothing can be said about it. because then it's absoluteness and just function. But with the separation, we've got this concept of an individual, a person, and things are not going so well with it, or even though life's functioning the way it naturally should and will. We think it should be different, we think it should be better. So we've got to try to become something. And that takes on a seeming path, on a seeming venture, where all sorts of things can continue to happen. And it can get very severe, the dramas, the traumas, the effects, and that'd be the natural flow. It can spread in all its diversity, and it does. But where does it all appear? What they call space. The room we are in right now is spacious. It's full of space. And I think those four walls and the ceiling and the floor are encapsulating it, closing it. But you can look beyond it. Look out there into this space. And can you find an end to that space? Can you find a centre to it, a spot where it all starts? I can't. Can't find a beginning to it. And can't find an end to it. And see patterns, many of the pattern shapes and forms are disappearing. Bodies, mind, insects, birds, everything like that. Timberlands, oceans drying up. Constantly changing. Where does it all go? Space. You can't get out of space. You can only back into space. Now, does space have a centre to it? Can you find a beginning to it? You can't. There's no static point anywhere. Can you find an ending to it? You can't. And this pattern, which just for believing in it was a lot of trouble, now just seeing it unfold as it unfolds, quite effortlessly, naturally, freely. Where's it going to go? Where did it come from? Can you postulate or think of anything that could be outside of this space? What would it be in? You really have to be in something. We've got it, the space. Space is no thing. Has no centre to it, no circumference, no shape, no form. And all this content, when you look at it, what is it? You realize you, me, the trees, the flowers, the oceans and everything are all things. Seeming something solid and substantial and real. Can something come from no thing? Because that's what it's all appearing in, the no thing. And you realise it can't. That's why it's transient. That's why it's changing all the time. That's why there's nothing lasting in it. Because it's constantly changing. says there, out of eternity this new day is born, into eternity at night will return. Here has been dawning another new day. Think wilt thou let it pass useless away? You're in the life, you are the life, recognise you are that life, open up to it. See where it takes you. Recognise, in spite of all the tumultuous noise, sound, signs and activities that's going on, there is a basic stillness to it. At the heart of the cyclone, there's a stillness. At the heart. So settle into that stillness. Get the taste of it. Recognise it. If you want to know the peace that passes all understanding, want to know or recognise that sense of well-being, being well, being unconcerned about the habits that are going on. Rest in it, relax in it, let it rest in its uncontrived singularity. Though it's seemingly, as I say, the many, it's still only and ever the single. Whatever's going on in it, the essence of it all is the oneness. And you are that. We take on this idea of the persona, and we've got this idea of a person, the me, the entity, and we believe that to be what I am, a separate entity, an individual, a person. What's that word person? Realise that's all it is a word. Coming from the ancient Latin, persona, the mask. Because they knew it was a mask even then, when they learnt those words. And we identify with that because it seems to have some natural life, personal life in it, we identify with it. Only because we learn words. You can't remember your birth. Why? Because you had no words. And you didn't learn any words till a couple of years old, what we call a couple of years, because when you look into that concept of time, you'll see that's all that is, another concept. Time is the past, present and future is what we call time. But is there a past if you don't think about it? Well, have a look at you, investigate it and see. You say, I was in the past. Well, see if you can go back and actually live yesterday, or even live a moment ago again. Unless you're recalling what was saying, what was going on then, you can't go back and live that moment even. The breath you're taking now will be fresh and new. The heartbeat will be a fresh and new one too. Not the same pattern, but I mean, say the expansion and contraction. The thoughts, unless you're clinging and fixating onto one, they'll be ever fresh and new too. The feelings that come from those thoughts, the feelings and the emotions will be different. But taking it away from this concept of time, what am I right now? Aren't I here already? What did I have to do to get here? So I said to you, wasn't there just a recognition that it's right here, right now that I am? But where did I come from? Then I can conceptualise some idea of a past. And then from that I can imagine, some idea of a future. And then we're in this concept of time. But what you are is absolutely right here, right now. Make the most of it, because this is all there is. All the past things that's had and happened, they've come and gone. Memories now. And all the sensation they cause by relating to them. What do you want to do? Or do you want to continue in those past memories, events and conditioning? Or wouldn't it be much more exciting, much more interesting to be with this ever-fresh presence awareness? What's coming in with this next breath I'm taking? What's going out if I breathe it out and let it go? What's happening right around? What am I going to hear in the next instance? What am I going to taste in the next touch or smell? What's the more important thing? The past or the future? Or what is the actual? This is actually it. And what do I have to do to become it? Well, as soon as I said that, there was a recognition. Nothing. This is it. This is right here and right now, it is it. And I am that isness. Without all these concepts, all these ideas and all these images. And it's all functioning by itself. All happening by itself. No one is making me take that breath or beating my heart. No one is out there is causing the leaves to move on the trees, though I don't see any wind at the moment, or the clouds to roll around the sky. It's all fresh and new expression. In its wonderment and its amazement. And with the conceptual ideas we take of what I am and what I can do and what I can't do and what has happened. See what's missed out on. And see this pattern through which it's expressing is not as fast as it used to be, not can grasp things as much as it, but it still has the capacities to do a lot of these things. And while it's got those capacities, make use of them. Because there might be a seemingly concept of time when it'll all disappear. And what good is that is going to be to me or anybody else? So the only thing that's right now in this presence awareness is where the life is. And all I can say is that I am that. I am that. Not this person, not this body mind, not this individual. I am that life. And look around me and recognise all around me that life is happening. Naturally, effortlessly and spontaneously. And when the seeming patterns are no longer of any use, they drop off. Go back into the space, the cognising emptiness. And ever fresh and ever new, more life can come. The person is not reality. And has seemingly lived in it for a long time. Still seemingly rears its ugly head at times, but it hasn't got the big hole on it had before. And it doesn't matter. It's known for what it is. And behind it, or you can say behind it, but there's no behind, there's no in front, there's no anywhere at all. You know that, as they say in some of the Psalms, I'm underneath of the everlasting arms. That space, that necessary essence that you can relax in. It's not no thing. It's a dead vacuum or a void. It is the absolute pure essence, which is no beginning, no ending, no high, no low, no far, no near. But it's this eternity, this moment, seeming moment, which is eternal. When does now begin? I'll try and grasp it right now. Got it. But it's gone, isn't it? It's beginning again. So it's beginningless and endless. No static point in it. No circumference. Be what you are. We've played the game long enough of being this entity. And none of you would be here if you were satisfied with it the way it's going. You'd be locked into some of these scriptural beliefs that you're going to get something at some future time, and you're going to sit on the right-hand side of Big Daddy, and then you're going to make it whole and complete for you. You can hold those beliefs for a while and hope they fulfil themselves. When you realise they don't, and they won't. And you look back and you realise there's never a time I can say I was not. And there never will a time I can say I will not be. And that means this pattern that these words are coming out of is the way it's expressing. But the pattern is not it either. But the space it's in, which is not being corrupted or contaminated by the pattern, shapes and forms that take place in it. That is all that there is. And you are that. So that'll do me for tonight. If you want to say anything, argue, fight about it, do whatever you like, or tell us your version. There are many different takes of it down through the ages. And all of them have got their sense of reality, because what are they all taking place in? Could anything be mouthed without that life essence going through it? It couldn't. So let it express in the be, but don't lose sight of it. Away you go.
I've got a couple of comments from people. We have nearly 30 people with us online. So welcome everyone here and online. And we have Amarnath, when you were talking about no becoming, he says, be no coming and going. And JB, good morning, good afternoon, guys and girls. Oh yeah, the welcoming messages, there was quite a few of them. Everyone's happy to see you. And Christopher, good to see you, Bob. You look sharp. So beautiful to experience never-ending unfolding whilst knowing nothing is happening. Nothing ever happened. And Jeff says, nice to breathe into that isness.
And realise that too, the no thing is the everything. And the everything is the no thing.
And oh yeah, this I've read already. And there is Julia says, British Julia, can't keep a good man down. Welcome back, Bob. And more good morning messages from Primali and Tanya and Amarnath. Yeah, they're just welcome messages. So you are welcome to have your device if you like. And thank you for a beautiful spiel. I believed in it. He didn't want to speak in the morning, and we almost had a little fight. So the agreement was that he will just start it, and if he just doesn't feel like because of the pain and the painkillers, then yes, of course, I'll be there to help. But it was wonderful. It was perfect. It was, yeah, I believed in it. So would anyone like to add something or ask a question or share something or perhaps direct the spiel or maybe highlight some of the pointers or argue with them? It is open for discussion. I'll be monitoring if anyone who is online is chipping in. Yeah, George says, brilliant, Bob. How could I have my own version when your pointers are so clear? George. Young George.
Young George.
Yes. Although I'd have to say Bob actually really enjoys, that's to George and everyone, when the pointers really sink in and he calls it get digested and they are expressed from their own core understanding, not just repeated words and concepts that were read somewhere or heard somewhere, but something that following the pointer unfolds within. Because there is ultimately only one thing that can really be understood conceptually by the mind, and that one thing is that the answer is not in the mind. Educated mind, stupid mind, trained mind, untrained mind has to be transcended equally. Quiet mind, noisy mind, the answer is not in the mind. So the understanding has to come from the core of the being, and if it comes through and expresses as the dance or music or poetry or painting, that's equally wonderful. And when it expresses itself as a pointer that can relieve someone from suffering, that's even more beautiful. That's what we're doing here.
I can jump in.
Please.
I don't think there's anything I can contribute that's new either. I mean, how do you improve on perfection, except to say that I can't help but notice that insanity is in the mind. You know, whenever I'm crazy, or I have been crazy. Well, not that I did any of it anyway. Okay, but whenever it happened. Seemingly, there was definitely a lot of mind caca and identification of a me that had to do it, or not do it, or definitely a sense of specialness, always a sense of specialness. And it's. I mean, I've had moments really like in in deep insanity, and it was so, like you said, I just loved your pointer of. The false cannot stand up to investigation, because that's all it took, you know, is a quick investigation, a recognition, as you say.
We got a comment from Tanya here. Let me just read it up. Thank you. So Tanya says, and the music, those made, which appears as the everyday thoughts and words and actions of you and others, is nothing other than presence playing through these instruments, and truly is the ultimate gift beyond beauty. That is from the book Perfect Brilliant Stillness by David Kars. Yeah, you could say everything's a music, everything's a dance, everything's one either way. And Amarnath, thank you, says, and a lot of icons. Beautiful noticing can be owned and disowned. Owner is notion. Merry Christmas in advance to all. Every moment is Christmas only. Thank you.
Yeah, well, so I'm new to the group, but not new to the ideas. I can't say that I've got them all integrated. I haven't. I'm still struggling. And what I'm wanting to do in my life now is just, perhaps I'll put it into the terms I understand, is, just create from the heart. And it's something I've never allowed myself to do. And so it's helpful, because in that process I see the whole struggle of the ego wanting to say, oh, but hang on, what about, this identity and this story and this event over here, and if you, etc. So it's, I work at it, and I have got a process, which I've learnt from a different thing. But would you have a suggestion to make that process easier and to decrease the resistance? Because sometimes the resistance is like, I'm astonished at what the ego can get up to. The closer I get to what I want from the heart, the bigger the performance from the ego. It's like it says, wow, have I got a story for you? And it gets bad sometimes, and then I have to sort of say, crikey, that's just a story, and we're giving up stories. So I don't know. Any advice, Bob?
That's beautiful. Would you like to comment on that, Danik? Advice. Yeah.
Just relax.
That's
Just
perfect.
Just relax, and the Earth's rolling around the sun. It doesn't. It's got to be at such and such a time and such and such a place. It's just rolling around naturally and absolutely. That's what it's got to do, and that's what a lot of people will tell you. Doing this, just open up to it and let it take you where it's going to take you, because it's the struggle, the opposition to it, that's retarded it and kept us where we are.
And just see how the birds are singing. They just such artists, and any art. But that's what a beautiful sort of attitude, that yes, I do want to create from the heart and let it flow. And the only obstacle is the narrative that is coming and telling, oh, that's not good enough, or I'm not good enough, who am I, or whatever. Disregarding that narrative and returning to that essence, to the body, to the heart, to the feelings. Just like it happens in nature, the animals who do not have the narrative. And the whole intention is already calling from the heart. That intention, if you just stay with that intention, that's what Bob was saying, open to life and it will take you where it takes you. That intention is like a calling from life, and it will take you all the way. And it's already taking you. You're already radiant. You already, it doesn't happen overnight, but slowly you are that bird singing. You are the nature. It will come. I just wanted to read one more thing. Here Gilbert says, nothing can be added to it, nothing taken away. And that's a brilliant point. You are already that.
Yeah, also the upset and the stress and the struggle is not separate from it. And so I had something come up yesterday, and I can see that's like underneath that a thought that is really connected to some old past pain that formed the way this shape of this mask shows up in the world, or has. And it's like each time, as soon as that's seen through, it's just like an even deeper stillness and peace. And so the reflection afterwards for me was, wow, even though at the time there's a little mind part that wants to come in and complain or think that's, I don't like what happened, But the afterwards is the gift of that, actually, that friction that shows the attachment, and it is the invitation and the opening. Yeah.
That resistance part of the dream. That if you can see it as an opportunity to love that part. And I love that Nisargadatta quote. The problem is not the dream. The problem is that you love one part of it and not the other. And if you find a way to just love your resistance. I've heard cats say that's love too. Your resistance is loving what is not, right? Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah.
Yes, I have already done that. When the resistance turns up in whatever form, what I learnt in doing this process but it took months for it to turn up, was just say, oh, okay, so you're here again, all right, thanks, you're part of my survival mechanism, and okay, I know you're here, and thanks, you help me stay alive in bad times, but now I need to do a bit more, but you'll always be here, so can you sit at the back of the bus with a nice mum, so it's like I've got a whole collection of mothers at the back of the bus with it's really, whenever I see this ego, it's like a little child who's trying to get my attention, saying, please don't do this, please don't take a risk, please don't be more who you really are, because then we'll be visible. And that's the fear, and that so that's what it just arrived intuitively, but I know it's there in the methodology of different. I know it's in Buddhism. What did they say? I heard something yesterday, like this part of us turns up, and Buddha called it Mara, said, hello Mara, let's have tea. So I thought, oh, it's like that. It's a similar approach, just it's an acceptance, because if I get into conflict and resistance, it just makes it, I get more stuck. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm working on it. That's all.
Or you can let it work you, whatever.
Yeah, whatever have you want to describe it.
Yeah.
But, so it means I have actually painted paintings, and they've just turned up, and they're not fantastic, and I've actually put them up on the wall. They're not brilliant, but it's like me seeing me, saying, oh, okay, that's who you are inside. Why don't you just say, good, I'm glad you've shown up at last. It's about time.
And ultimately, it's just not just you painted it. Everything, the whole world has painted it with you, because your capacity to paint comes from your upbringing, comes from your learning to walk, to speak, to the whole environment contributing to it. So ultimately, the world has painted it through you. The Absolute used you as a tool, with the way you were conditioned, structured, with your attractions, with colors that you would choose. So it's kind of a nice, easy shortcut to just not take credit for it. The painting happened. And if you look at the little children, they draw something and they come and look, mommy, what I did. They first say, look what happened. The painting happened. And then they get conditioned to believe that, oh, you did it. Oh, that's good. Do more. I will give you approval. So that now child starts taking credit and doing more in exchange for the approval. So the spontaneous creativity got somehow channeled into the game of but everything, yes, everything just happens. Painting happens, dancing happens, speaking happens, breathing, heartbeat, all of it happens. And I just wanted to read also, there is a beautiful message from Armanath. Great to see you, Gilbert. We were missing you since long time. Words cancel each other out without meaning, they die. Death of language, even concept of silence, real birth and wisdom. Yeah, would be good to see you, Gilbert, if you are around. And Tanya says, relaxing just happens. No entity doing relaxation. Resistance thoughts just come and go. Life definitely does take you where you need to go. There is noticing that life is perfectly unfolding, even when it looks like that thought would say is not perfect. As Bob says, leave it as it is. And Amarnath, without ease there is no resistance. Without resistance is no ease too. Yeah, they only exist in the relation to the opposite. Tanya, love all of it or none of it. Really love that, Julia. That pointer stayed with me after last week's Sunday meeting. Have found loving all of it showing up the last few days. Thank you. And Ram, we are here now with most beautiful love birds. Amarnath, beautiful, Tanya, and we are trying to hold which cannot be held. What a beautiful game of fun. You never entered the game, yet we are playing, winning and losing the game. In and out are also lost their meaning. And Primali, what helped me is to see that I can't think what I want. I only wanted thoughts that make me happy, but I couldn't do it. I had no control over these thoughts. Then, who is this me? Me had no place. Thoughts happen. Feelings happen. They happen to nobody. Beautiful, beautiful. All the narrative just happens. Resistance happens. Struggles happens. They just happen.
As long as that openness is there.
Yes, yes. And flowing with life and just being curious what's going to happen next. What thought is going to come, what feeling, what ideas, what actions, what forms come in this sphere of seeing, what sounds will come in the sphere of hearing, and just marvel, because ultimately it is a miracle, the miracle of existence, of seeming existence. As we know, they're only impermanent, they only come for this moment, and in the next moment it's gone, it's dead. So this is the moment to be here, present, and appreciating all that shows up, and that includes the sadness, includes the struggle.
You can't take anything in with the door shut.
Yeah. Yeah. And John, Kat, can Bob or you speak about the quote, where two or more are gathered, I am there? I heard this recently and thought of Bob. Would you like to comment on that? That's, I think, a biblical quote of Jesus, where two or more. Why two or more? Why not one is enough?
Well, the two was one anyway, but
Yeah.
the more it resonates with, the easier it flows around to somebody else.
What did you say?
More it resonates when it's, when there is a communication, then it flows and kind of multiplies. Yeah, the resonation. Do you have an insight about that?
Well, it's two or more gathered in my name.
In my name.
Yeah, so they're gathered for that purpose, I guess.
Yeah. Say it again, because they didn't.
When
hear
two or more gathered in my name, I will be there. Yeah.
I see.
Yes.
Yes, that clears it up, doesn't
Be
it?
there in their midst.
In their midst.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
What's
Yeah.
the I that's there?
Mm-hmm.
What is the I that's there?
In my name, like kind of focusing on the essence of existence. So if two or more gathers, completely giving the attention to the core of the existence, it shows up, it shines through, perhaps. Because that, what John was saying, where two or more are gathered, I am there.
Yep.
It's the only way it can know itself. The only way it can know itself is to have the appearance.
That's a great point. Yeah, that's the only way it can know, through the appearance. So it has to have a reflection. Yeah, when it's one and there is no one to reflect, there is no other, then like you can see my face, but you can't see yours. So the knowing only appears from the opposite or from the background. Yeah, interesting idea to look at. Now Primali says, "Oh, you want to say?"
Just together in thy name, whatever
Mm-hmm.
It's the one name. If you're going to call it anything.
Yeah.
There I am.
It seems to help when you have, I don't know, maybe it's just a benefit. I'm thinking of, like, I'm just thinking, kind of spitballing here. But when you're, we often tend to pick up on the ideas or leaving the ideas, or at least the pointers, or where somebody's pointing. If everyone's pointing in the same direction, right? Then you've got more and more. It just makes it somehow a little easier. If I'm around people and everyone's pointing, in different directions, and if you got everyone pointing in the same, am I making any sense? Pointing in the same direction, then it's like, oh yeah, it just seems to be, yeah, it just seems to make it easier to, I don't know. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's just me spitballing, but.
It's all one energy. If the energy's going through each and every one of you, it's going to be much stronger, isn't it?
It's sort of witnessing as well, isn't it?
Witnessing.
Like a witnessing, observing people and noticing. I don't want to go on about it. That's what it is to me. It's like an energy that comes from what you were saying, pointing the same direction, and a witnessing, being present to something, to receive, like a container. I don't know. That's what it says to me.
Can I talk?
Yeah,
I don't know what else to say, but I've thought about this recently, and because for years I was locked into this witnessing kind of religion, and it's just more me. It's just the appearance of functional witnessing. It's just more layers. Yeah.
The thing that stood out for me in your talk was this idea of effortlessness. And so I'm wondering if any effort is just counterproductive in this desire to wake up. Is it just grace that someone wakes up? Is there anything you can do? I mean, it seems to be the paradox, this idea of effortless effort.
Yes, effortless effort. That's the idea.
Oh, it says when effort is required, effort will happen. It happens.
And then it is effortless,
Yeah.
because when it is something that naturally comes, when you think of a mother waking up in the middle of the night because the baby cries, the oxytocin rushing through, and she jumps out of bed, love does it. She doesn't really do it. That's the sort of effortless effort. When you may find yourself doing all sorts of things, but without taking credit, it is life doing it. So when the effort is required, whatever the effort, because of course every sort of body-mind machinery has different conditioning. Some things, maybe in some bodies it may be kind of beneficial to chant mantras or whatever, and if that happens, that's the way of it. But life does it. There is never an entity doing it, because the moment you say, oh, I have to sit in a meditation and put an effort, you solidify the I. Instead of realizing there is no I, there is just life going about its unfolding.
Just when it's a deliberate functioning, it's using effort, and as a person, you're separating yourself from the natural functioning of intelligence energy.
Mm. And some of it may, like from someone watching from outside, it may feel like enormous effort. Imagine, going to India and meeting Nisargadatta on the tram few hours, then on the bus, in the heat, sneaking out from the ashram, just to sit in a room that is thick of smoke that almost cut through with the axe. And that seems like a huge effort. But he was almost flying on his wings with the sink going through that heat. That was effortless. To just, life was moving him to get there, and just effortless. But from someone outside, the story might look like, oh my gosh, I would not sacrifice that far. I would not go with that sort of a surrender. Nobody does go through anything. Life does all of it. You may find yourself being moved to sit in silence, or you may find yourself having a narrative about, I need to do meditation, because if I do meditation, then I, the doer, will discover something at the end of the... So effortless effort is just giving credit where credit is due. And everything, when you look at nature, you look at animals, some of them take enormous efforts to find food, to fight for mates, to start the families, to survive. It seems like incredible, especially with that human animal on the same planet, taking more and more of their territory. And they don't have a story that's an effort. That's just life doing its thing. Yeah, please.
Something I like. It's a good point. But a wise person was more was concerned to. It says that know that things are empty. So effort is empty. Effortless is empty. That way we won't sort of reify, effort or effortlessness sort of thing. So it's a middle path in between the two. I like your comment. I just had you were talking about there was a self there doing all your studying, or and I thought that it's sort of interesting that there are great meditators in India, thousands of years ago, but there was always an I that was meditating. They were never free of this someone who was doing the meditating, so on. But a big thing is just to know that all things are empty. Then you can be free of effort or effortlessness. There'll be a lot of striving for effortlessness. I've done a lot of striving on that, and so on. Okay, thank you.
I think it would come a lot down to like I think one of you already said, taking credit. Sorry. I
was just going to say also, there's nobody that wakes up. There's no separate people. So there's this expectation that something's going to happen, and it just doesn't. There's nobody. Yeah.
You want to say something?
In Buddhism, I don't know who said it, but as Tony was just pointing out, emptiness is form, and form is nothing but the emptiness. So it's nobody doing anything.
Yeah, and absolutely. Thank you, Sebastian, for that. Nobody wakes up. That's the point. To realize that no matter what you do or what life will do, the waking up is waking up from the idea of I, from the idea of being separate me, into nothing. Into nothing that doesn't really have any preference or doesn't bother with, I want to wake up, I don't want to wake up. When the I goes away, the idea of waking up also goes away, because there's no one who wants it, or no one who needs it, or no one who craves it. It's just the whole, they all recognize as ideas. There is idea of me, and there is an idea of enlightenment, and there is idea of the sort of a becoming or getting or achieving that enlightenment. When you see through the ideas, they all drop away, and there's no me, there's no enlightenment, no becoming, nothing. It's just life in this moment as it is. It's just so simple that there's really nothing to have, nothing to get, nothing to look for. The seeking is all gone. And life is just as it always have been.
Another thing, if there's no self-nature, how can there be other nature? That's it.
Yeah. Okay, I have. That's right. Yeah.
An other is just, can be a chair,
Another idea.
person, it could be a ghost, it could be I use it for an alien or something or other, as something other. Well, there's no nature, there's no self-nature in this dimension, seemingly. How could there be nature in some other dimension?
Yeah.
That cured me of ghosts and supernatural things. They may still appear,
Absolutely.
but we can't find a self-nature, an essence in this world, like treeness or selfness or tableness or anything like that in this dimension. How are we going to find a nature on on Mars or some other dimension, or speaking to the dead or something or other?
Yeah.
So it cured all my sort of thoughts about wondering about supernatural events and so on, which doesn't deny these appearances. You may see a ghost, may see an alien. That's possible. But as far as that appearance having any substance or essence to it, no, because we can't find any substance or essence in anything in this world.
That's right. Yeah.
So how could there be, if we can't find anything in this world, how could there be self-nature in another world? And we could only know this other dimension, whether it be a ghostly dimension, from this dimension.
Yes.
So that's the only way we could interpret, a ghostly realm or some other dimension is from this dimension.
And
Okay.
I is a ghost.
Yeah.
There is no.
The phantom.
Yeah.
So when I goes, he goes.
When I goes, he goes. Yeah. And Ross wanted to say something?
No, no.
No? Okay, then I'll read a couple of comments. Oh, okay.
I guess where I'm stuck is you see aspirants or people making these Herculean efforts and these stories of people like the Buddha, or recently I was been reading or listening to some Papaji or Punjaji, and he made these tremendous efforts until that all fell away. So there was. My question is, were they deluded before that happened? Was there the paradox, I guess, is that all this effort happens to realize that the effort wasn't necessary, but I still seem to be stuck on that idea that there is a difference. That something happens, there's a before and an after, that there is some kind of waking up. And I recognize that, yes, I'm already awake, but there's the recognition, as you point out. Yeah. So you can say that recognition is the waking up, but yes. Before that recognition happens, there is delusion, and that's where we suffer. So...
Yeah, you're right. There is that element of... Bob calls it ignorance. They call it ignorance. We are ignoring our true nature. The thing is, the waking up is from the illusion of self, of being separate. So there is, let's say, Papaji, I don't know his story, but whoever's story, you could say the story of seeking is a story of effort, it's a story of putting hours into contemplation, meditation, reading, studying, whatever it is. But it's a lot of energy going invested in trying to find the answers for the me. So the idea is that there is a me, and that me, whatever it does, it takes credit for the doing. So now it feels like there is a lot of effort, and then suddenly it dawns on you, oh shit, I have never done a thing. Not only there is no I right here, right now, there was no I 5 years ago, 10 years ago, or ever. There was only a ghost, an idea of an I, which is a narrative, is just a construct of the mind taking credit for what is happening. Like if you imagine, oh my gosh, I have to work so hard to grow my hair, you know, I'm doing it. I have to then digest my food and I have to process it into a shit and I have to now get rid of it. That is the credit taking capacity. So what happens really is that, and a good analogy is like Bob is showing up, you know, when you realize that there has never been a snake in the rope, there has never been a Santa Claus, or there has never been flat earth. It's not that you investigated and yesterday the earth was flat and today, oh shit, it got round again. No, it has always been round. There is only a belief. So there has always been the effortless sort of life flowing through the body, and there never been a me. But for the longest time, the habit of translating what is happening as my actions and my efforts were there. So I was sitting in meditation, going from ashram to ashram, or monastery to monastery. I was putting hours into meditation, contemplation, reading, study, and now I don't. But the truth is, I never did. There was life. Because there was a story of the me, the energy was channeled into sustaining the story of the me. When the story of the me disappeared, there may be still habitual behavior of entertainment found in the same music or the same study, but rather not, because, well, most of the situation that I know firsthand is that sort of a seeking habit drops, because what sustains it is the idea that there is something to be had or found for the me. When the me is gone, there is nothing to be had or found with the me. But really is the realization or recognition that there never been an entity who was trying to get liberated or who was trying to free itself from the suffering. So there is sort of, one could say, waking up from the story of me, waking up from the dream of being separate entities somewhere there inside, little thing that has to do all that hard work of growing the hair and breathing and thinking and deciding and feeling all those feelings that my shame, my wrongness, or they didn't respect me. And it's just a narrative. It's a recognition that what you think you were is not the truth, because what you are is that nothingness, or that just spontaneous unfoldment of the energy. Yes, Simon.
Thanks. Yeah, there's no way to understand or know this. So we'll go through the process of seeking and meditating, whatever, but that's still a way of trying to know it or understand it. And as Kat says, it could be a recognition that one day it can be dropped, that it never happened. Yeah?
Yeah, but obviously you're not going to drop it. It will
No.
drop, or
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
you can't.
Yeah, correct.
Can I suggest something? Well, not suggest, but what happened here, right to the bitter end, was a firm belief in the Enlightenment myth, that everything would be better and loving and problem-free. And that falls away as well. So when you're left with what is, it can still be everything that happened before, but not for anybody. So that waiting and that need for a shift or for something to happen is just this story, this game, this need for a final completion, which doesn't exist. Yeah.
That's beautiful, and that's so vital. Yeah, waiting subtly, like what is wrong with right now? Why is this moment not good enough? Oh, but there is still a belief in the me. Oh, well, okay, but you see, it's just a belief, so you just don't bother with it. Yeah, but there is no pleasure, there is no bliss. So there is still a subtle expectation of pleasure or bliss, but that's also a passing phenomenon. Just don't bother with it. And in this moment, as that thinking stops, That is the natural state. That is as good as it gets. You still need the knee replacement if the knee goes wrong, and you still feel pain when it's happening. And when there is a threat, you still find the body run away, or there's like life is just as it is for any animal or any tree or anything in nature. Only the story, the whole manifestation, day, night, pleasure, pain, winter, summer, only minus the story that it should be any different, or there is something that should be happening, so I can actually be in a better position than I am now, because this now, as it is no good. Says who? The idea that this is not perfect as it is the idea, is the thought held by seeming individual who claims it. So there is a seeming individual who has better vision of how this moment should look like, but they just phenomena in the consciousness, in that open field of being. There is a phenomena passing through, the belief in ghost, or belief in I, or belief in whatever.
Just sort of thinking of two comments that might be relevant or may not be, but enlightenment or whatever, that's empty too, to start off with, and it's dependently arisen. That's another way of saying it's empty. It depends on enlightenment, depends on something. But in a sense, enlightenment, if say, just as a helpful, whatever words I say, they'll never convey. There'll always be flaws. But then you can use words. I'm not against using words and saying, no, you don't use words. No. And it's only by words, that's all we've got. So I have no problems with words. And Bob has got no problems with words. He certainly speaks a lot, probably more than me. But anyway, but if you want to say enlightenment, is just a change of mindset. And the world is still the same. As you were saying, but one person, it's still the same things. One person sees it, if you want to say, as nirvana. All the rubbish that's going on, and another person sees it as samsara, separates them. So there is really no separation between samsara and nirvana, or whatever you like to call it. And the other thing is enlightenment is we're sort of, or whatever, we think we're going to find something, and enlightenment is the not finding. It's not finding something, but in the not finding. That's the and I can become quite certain, and it takes time, and I reckon it takes effort. I've got no problem with effort either, but and I'm quite certain that I cannot find a self, or a treeness, something called treeness or catness, but there's an absolute certainty about that. But most of us think we're going to find something, a blissful state or something like that, and the reality is there isn't really. Everything is empty. And so you're not ever actually going to find anything. And, these enlightened ones, they never apprehended things as though there was something. They never apprehended a rock as though it was something substantial or something other. They knew there was no rockness there to apprehend. So so they don't apprehend things. The ignorant people, I'm not allowed to use that word though today, are we? We're not. It's so on. But anyway, I like the word ignorance.
You mean people or ignorant?
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay.
But,
She made a joke.
but the normal person thinks that they've found something. Of course I'm real. Of course that tree's real. Of course such and so on, as though they are apprehending some essence or some real nature there. But there isn't anything there to apprehend. So this is the ignorance, the ignorant, you know. I used to do that. I think I still do it, you know, and thinking that I can actually apprehend and I know things. I know I'm real, and don't tell me I'm not real, and I know that you know that's real, and so on. And in fact, you know, no one has been. It's the non-apprehension, you know, awakening, and that is the non-apprehending of anything, you know, the not finding anything at all. Now, you know, it's actually positive. It's all in the negative, and that, but it's a sort of a positive. And while we're speaking, if I'm on the affirmative, that's why I was having a crack at you, Kat. Then while I'm being positive and affirmative, that's okay, but I'm usually going to affirm there some substantiality, something that exists, you know. But in all of that, you know, I'll do the same thing. It just depends, but just keeping it in mind that, you know, this Nagarjuna was a skeptic or on the negative. He just refuted and wasn't in a positive thing, because to affirm something positive is like attributing, you know, inherent existence, that there's something really there. Oh, I'll give someone else a go.
I'm really curious about people's motivation for coming here, because I'm coming here because there's some sense of lack. I mean, whether it's real or not, there's some sense. And I hear some other people speaking who seems like they've arrived, or there's some awakening, or they got it. And I'm just curious, if there is no sense of lack, why would you come here?
As long as there's a me left, there'll be a sense of knowing or seeking. So a lot of us here would like to be in where maybe Bob is. Yeah, so I'm just saying, you know, there is no Bob, and you know, it's only when the me drops or finally dies, you could say, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
and you might still find yourself here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just love everyone here.
I heard another wise person once said that I know that everyone loves me, but not everyone realises that fact.
I'll say. Okay, well, I'm here. I've been up so many gum trees on the seeking path, you know, I'm forever, really, and not all of them have been a waste of time, but a lot of them have been surprisingly useless. And so I'm trying to save time because I'm getting old, and I just want to live from the heart. Whatever, I don't really care what philosophy it fits in. I'm not interested in labels or levels or achieving something. I already played that game and it wasn't great. So I'm trying to just save time now because I'm getting old.
I'll do the same.
Pardon?
Where do you think you're living from?
Oh, well, you know, still partly from the mind, and not as much, but the mind. I know, yes, but it's like I've figured out that the heart has more to say than I ever let it. I ignored it most of my life, and I feel like it was understandable, and some of it was fear-based, but it's not where I want to be now. You know, and I see, I've been up a lot of gum trees and said, oh shit, what a waste of time. Anyway, that's where I'm at, and that's why I'm here. So
You followed your heart.
I followed my heart. Well, Jacinta was my friend, she told me about it, and so I just do everything intuitively. If it feels right, I'll give it a go. If it's crap, I will leave. It's so far
That was an excellent question you asked. So I suppose my response would be the lack, and I think you're right there is a lack, and that is the good company. So I come here for good company.
Thank you.
Good reason.
I'll answer your question. I come here because I've got a lot of voices in the head. It's very noisy, incredibly noisy in my head. I come here, and thanks to Bob and Kat, they quieten those voices. Without that, I don't know where I'd be.
Beautiful. Thank you.
There's a couple of good questions a wee while back, but there's a seeking that, to me, everyone seems to have shared a time of seeking, and that there's a someone who thinks that there's going to get something, and that's definitely what there was for me, driven by the degree of suffering this me was experiencing. And so that until there was, which I believe there was for you too, Bob, but maybe correct me, that until there was someone, so it sort of comes back to the wherever two or more of you are gathered, so too am I, that there's a question or a something that was created a shift and that seemed to there be a falling away, and then there no more seeker present. And yet coming here, you know, this one comes here because there's a reflection still of love, and there's a sharing of truth that just, you know, to resonate and just bathe in. And also there are times when there's a bit of a me that pops up, and then I come and sit with Bob, or I sit here, and there's a deepening in that endlessness. Yeah, but Papaji was seeking. He was seeking. He was seeking as a householder, and he was seeking. He was following an experience, you know, that experience of experiencing Krishna, dancing with Krishna, you know, because he'd had a childhood experience of absolute seeing, and then it sort of drifted away. And then Ramana, when he finally got to Ramana, and the question Papaji had was, show me God. Somebody show me God. And he'd been all over India to all sorts of sages, and nobody had been able to actually show him God. And somebody finally said to him, you need to go to Tiruvannamalai, there's someone there, I reckon he can show you God. And when he got there, he was not impressed with Ramana. He thought, you know, man doesn't say anything, you know, no. And then he reluctantly came back because someone there suggested him to do that. And as he came back, and Ramana just asked him one question basically, and he, you know, where is Krishna now? And all of a sudden, Papaji just, everything stopped, which is why Papaji's main teaching was stop everything. Just stop. Stop seeking, stop thinking, stop trying to heal, just stop. Yeah.
I also enjoyed the question about what's enlightenment, when does someone become awake, and all those things, and actually you just basically said, well, I'm feeling that whatever that term or that end goal is, or whatever is when the seeking stops. It's the effort and all those things, those terms we were using, is that whilst you're seeking, and what I'm hearing, and I'm here to am I here to be enlightened? I'm not sure, but share knowledge, thoughts, and all the rest of it. That's certainly why I'm here, to share and to, I would say, absorb, learn. But definitely from what I'm taking in is that point of, whilst you're continuing to seek, it's a process and it's ongoing. So you're not there, but how do you ever get there if you're doing it? So, yeah, I don't know.
And that there's no there to get.
Yeah.
You're here.
And I have quite a few comments there from people who are with us online. And also I would like to just add a little bit of a spin on that beautiful why question. So every time you ask why, about anything, whether why we are here, or why did you go to the school that you did go, or why were you born, or why you're a patriot, or why is your political, see what it does, it invites the mind to justify and create a story. And those are all beautiful stories. I imagine that if Jane was with us today, she would say, because she often says that she's here out of love and gratitude for Bob. That's a good reason also. Somebody else would say that the reason why they're here are this and that and the other. See how the question why straight away transport you to the mind and bring up this beautiful, brilliant storyteller to lie down the justification. This, I'm going to this or that. It's beautiful. The truth is, why am I here? The mind would say, I don't know. But the life would say, because I'm not somewhere else. I am here because I find myself here. Here. Why? Which story do you want? You want 10, 20, 30? No worries. But the truth is, we don't really know. It is whole universe contributing why we're here. Like Sue was saying, because Jacinta is her friend and she was, that's part of the story. Or because, you were born in this country and Bob happened to be in the same country. You were born somewhere else, but some of us, not me either. But the question why is a very valid question. Yes, because there is a sense of luck. Yes, because there is a hope for extinguishing that suffering, ending that seeking, or they are all valid answers. But they are all stories. The truth is, you're here because life took you here. Like Bob says, stay open and see where life is going to take you. It took you here. Wonderful. Trust life. That's where you should be because that's where you are. And I also wanted to acknowledge a few people who actually, and mention Zoom tomorrow for Americans in about almost 21 hours from now. The details are on the website.
You up for that tomorrow?
Yeah, you up for that? Julia is hosting the Zoom. Bob will probably be there on the Zoom. And now I'm going to say here, Tanya is saying to Primali, wonderful to hear your recognizing. There is nothing like unhappy in this world. It's just notion, says Amarnath. And Ram says regarding Primali that no doubt that what helped her is actually really helpful. And Amarnath, Tanya says, thank you, Amarnath. This could not be held in such fun. So many concepts are seen to be meaningless. We don't have any relationship with thoughts or me, says Amarnath. And one is many, many are one. Language is languageless. There is no difference at all. And non-duality, says Ram. And that was answer to John. Beautiful. Who is effort or effortless yet to find? That is so beautiful about effortless effort, says Primali. Effort is a story, says British Julia. And Amarnath, thoughts, effort, mind, seeking. And Julia, please, can you speak more on everything being empty, all being appearance only? I think Tony answered that pretty well. Nothing has any separate nature or any existence that you could find. Nothing stands of its own. Everything depends on everything else. Separation is effort. Non-separation is effortless. That's a nice spin. It's still all done by life. There's no one else to do anything. There is no self or ego at all, Amarnath says. Ultimate truth, says Ram. And Amarnath, to whom are these appearances? Can we see the seer? Beautiful game. And who is doing efforts has the exhaust his doership to recognize his effortless nature. And Bob gave wonderful answers how to do it practically. Relax. And Vivek, objectively, physical goals require effort. Effortless, no physical goals. Well, you can name it goals or not, but if you look at the world of nature or animals, they don't set physical goals. Goals unfold as the doing meets its end. Let's say if the bird is finding a tree and putting the nest, it doesn't even have the narrative of having physical goal of having a nest. It just finds the doing leads to the nesting. The doing leads to the painting, one or the other. So physical goal is a narrative. That's doership, personality, equals personality equals separate center. Yes, Ren. So it is the ego's journey, the seeming journey. There is no ego, no journey, but it looks like it. It's a story, and a story is a dream. Beautiful discussions, says Amarnath. Grateful to all. We are ever free. There is no freedom or bondage. Both are notions. Yes, there is only language interpreting it as such. Achieving self equals no more achiever, and no self to achieve also. And Terry, there is efforting and no personal efforter. There is speaking and no speaker. All is bursting into existence and not in increments. There is just this, nameless, formless, and yet magnificently exquisite, non-dual love which can't be known by dualistic mind. Outside of mind, duality does not exist. Time does not exist. All there is. Beautifully, Terry, beautifully said. And Amarnath, beautiful, no finder of finding, both are notion. And Tanya, beautiful and so true. There is only this non-dual love, she's replying to Terry, that has no conditions. Knowledge is ignorance. Ignorance is knowledge, says Amarnath. Nirvana is samsara. Tony just said samsara is nirvana. Form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. Can then be observer without apprehending, is asking Ren. Observing. Observer is already conceptualizing a point or the entity, but observing happens. Urine. Every man is, quoting Jeremiah 10:14, every man is brutish in his knowledge. Every founder is confounded by the graven image, for his molten image is falsehood, and there is no breath in them. Beautiful, absolutely. There's no life in any images. Divine I love is all in all, that's Ram. Drop the me and just be, that says Vivek. And Tanya, thank you, all lovely expressions of one essence. Great conversation about apparent lack and resistance. Lack is story only. Thank you so much for speaking today, Bob. Love you all. And thank you all, and all notice silence too, just hidden, interwoven, says Amarnath. And spot on cut, says Hansa. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much. You want to say?
Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Kat. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
Good to see you back.
Yeah.